Thank you. All right, at 1:05, we will call to order the Finance Committee and the first day of budget hearings for the fiscal year starting FY 23 to 24. And if we could get a roll call, how are we doing this? You're going to do that? Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett. Here. Councillor Lindell. Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Villarreal.
Present.
Councillor Romero Worth.
I'm here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Terrific. So we have just a couple items on today's agenda and we need to approve it. But I'll ask the formal question to our director. Are there changes to this very short agenda?
Madam Chair, no changes from staff.
Okay. Are there changes from the committee? And if not, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this meeting, the first day of budget hearings. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Okay, we are on to the chair's opening remarks, and I would just say welcome to the committee and thank you all in advance for the hard work that goes into reviewing this budget and for the hours you'll log and both in chambers and out, thinking and reviewing what is in our budget books. So just want to say thank you. Also want to say thank you to the staff who have worked very hard in putting this together. And thank you for getting it to us in a timely way so that we've had a chance to look it through in advance of starting. And let's see, any other thank yous? Thank you. And, you know, we have a number of directors in the chamber and we'll be seeing more as the day goes through, but or the weeks go through. But I just want to also say thank you to you. I know you're critical in putting this agenda or this budget together and really appreciate the work and your cooperation with the finance department as they put together this and did this enormous task. So I don't really have anything else to say at this moment. I will say, I will let the committee know that we have a hard stop at 3:30 and that is to allow, you're going to notice that as we go through the days and weeks, the times will differ when we start, when we stop. They are to accommodate other city meetings for those of us who sit on the dais and, you know, or the use of this council chambers for other meetings. So today we do have a hard stop at 3:30. And I think as we go through, I'd like to propose, and the way I'd like to handle the questions from the committee is that we'll hear the presentations from the folks that are on any particular day's agenda, and then we'll go to questions from the committee. And what I want to do is a lot like we do at land use hearings, and kind of go down the row and have a set time, and we'll talk about that. So that, you know, for instance, say today everybody has, you know, we'll do the overview and we'll do 5 minutes of questions from each counselor, and then we can go back down the line if we need to, but just as a way to make sure that all the counselors are getting an opportunity to ask the questions they have and that we are paying attention to the time. You know, if each of us asks 10 minutes worth of questions, that's 50 minutes into the hearing. So I want us to kind of be mindful of time and try to keep us on track. That's probably one of my biggest jobs. And I know we have lots of questions, and this is a terrific opportunity for us as counselors to talk directly with the directors and hear about, you know, how things have gone in the last year and what the vision is for the coming year. So it is a great opportunity for us, and I don't want to limit that necessarily, but we do have some time constraints and we do need to be mindful of that. So with that, I will go to our department reviews. Today, we have an overview on the budget, and then we will hear from our union representatives, as has kind of been a standard practice to get direct input from them on this budget. So let's start with the overview, and I will pass it over to Emily Oster, our finance director. And I know you will introduce the people next to you who have played a very important role in the development of this budget. And I will let you take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. To my right, I am so honored to be joined by Alexis Lotero. Alexis is our Assistant Finance Director. And to my left, I have Andy Hopkins, our Budget Officer. I'm in very good company here, having these folks up here at the table with me. We are delighted to be presenting to you the proposal for the city's FY24 budget. I will give a couple of opening remarks, and then we'll turn it over to Andy to dive into a little bit more of the detail and the overview of the highlights of this FY24 budget proposal. I am very proud of this proposal. I know that all of us have worked very hard, and thank you, Chair Romero-Worth, for acknowledging all the effort both within finance and throughout city government that has gone into this. We started this process back in November with initial proposals for new initiatives, and here we are in April with the book in front of us and moving forward. It's very exciting, and it's a long process that involves input and effort by really everyone throughout city government. So it's exciting that we've reached this point, and we're proud to review the document with you today. I want to highlight the fiscal responsibility that's contained in this budget. I think that we've tried hard to thread the needle between meeting the needs that exist here in our city and ensuring that we maintain a balanced budget and responsible spending. I think you'll see that reflected in this proposal. We have focused on sustaining innovations that have started in previous fiscal years. Last year, we saw a record amount of gross receipts tax revenue, the highest that the city has ever seen. And I'm very pleased and very proud that we've been able to find a way in this current proposal to continue many of those key initiatives. As an example, the down payment assistance program that started last year is funded with the same amount available to spend in this current, in the FY24 fiscal year, $750,000. You'll see that throughout the budget proposal, that many of those initiatives that started out last year as a pilot, when we saw such large revenue growth, we were able to continue those in the current budget. We also have some exciting new initiatives that we've been able to present to you here. One example I'd like to highlight there is the opening of the Teen Center. This is the culmination of a years-long effort by the city to open this new facility. My understanding is that the last new facility that the city opened was the Chavez Center, which was in the early 2000s. So I really think that this is a very big deal, and it's going to be a huge benefit to our community to have a place for young people to go and be safe and enjoy activities and opportunities to learn and be together in a safe environment. So the funding to furnish and operate the Teen Center in FY24 is included in this budget. I also want to highlight several initiatives related to making Santa Fe a more just city and a focus on justice in our community. We have an initiative related to Hopewell Man gentrification prevention that has to do with the development of the Midtown area and ensuring that folks that have lived in that area of town for generations, in some cases, are able to stay in their homes and enjoy the benefits that come with the city's redevelopment of that Midtown campus asset in the center of town. We are also putting together a living wage task force. We're excited about that. Santa Fe has historically been a leader in terms of living wage nationally, and we're excited to dive back into that and take another look at next steps and how that effort can evolve in FY24. We're also making key investments in our workforce, and I think this is very important. The single largest expense in the city's budget is related to personnel, salaries, and benefits. So making sure that we're investing in our workforce in a sustainable way that's fiscally responsible, but also recognizes the fact that our operations are dependent on the people. The city is driven by the people that work at the city. And so I'm excited that we were able to make key investments in the increased employer contribution to the para-retirement fund, the increased investment in health insurance benefits with no changes, no plan changes for employees. That's very important. I want to highlight that the city is making that increased investment in the health insurance benefits fund in order to ensure that the fund is solvent without having to raise premiums or raise copays or any changes to the plan. And then finally, I'm very excited about our tiered salary proposal, which really, I think, speaks to that commitment to justice and making Santa Fe a more just city. We are proposing funding sufficient to allow for 3% raises for employees who make below $100,000 per year and 1% salary increases for those making over $100,000 per year. And I really want to share with you all, I'm excited to share with you all that tiered salary proposal came out of a collaborative discussion and a process that involved directors here at the city stepping up and saying, you know, we really want to direct any funding that is available for salary increases to those among us that are most in need. And we recognize that 1% for me or for the city manager, or really for, you know, a lot of us up here today, is very different than 1% for one of our parks workers, a lifeguard, you know, someone else who's at a different part of the pay scale. So as directors, we made that recommendation, and the budget team came together and said, yep, we see that that's important, and that makes us a more just city. And so we're gonna make that work. So I'm excited about that salary proposal, and I look forward to reviewing it in more detail. The last thing that I'll say before I hand it over to this very capable team up here is thank you. I really am just so incredibly proud of this team here in finance and specifically in budget. I think that all of our efforts in finance are focused on continuing improvement. And I think we made some key changes to the budget process this year. I'll specifically call out getting the budget out earlier so that folks have more time to review before we started our hearings. I think that's an important step forward. And, you know, there are many other examples of that. And I just really want to say thank you to Alexis and Andy. And then we also have Janelle there and Amanda from our budget team. And Andy will do introductions as well. But I just really wanted to express my thanks to you all for your hard work to get us to this point, and just really emphasize how proud I am of this and how excited I am that we're moving forward with this review process. So in conclusion, if we could give just a brief round of applause to the budget team, that would be great. Thank you. All right, now I'll hand it over to Andy for the substantive remarks.
Greetings, members of the Finance Committee. Thanks for being here. Before I launch into the presentation, I wanted to give a more formal introduction to our new staff, our new budget team. Starting with Anita Medina, if you'll stand up real quick. She's done most of the work on constructing the FY24 POL. She's also assigned the departments of community health and safety, and I think it was just community health and safety. There were a few others. She was a former city veteran. She had been through at many places at the city, including finance, before she went over to the state, and we were able to get her back. Next, we have Amanda Romero. She joined us back in fall, a little bit after Anita did. She's was assigned the departments of public utilities and community development. So she's joined our team recently as well. And finally, working the PowerPoint is Janelle Chavez. She's our most recent team member. She was not assigned any departments because she came in kind of halfway into the process, but she's been helping us a lot with the day-to-day processing and making sure that everything is still going through smoothly while the rest of us are going crazy with budgets. So Janelle Chavez is our newest leader, so I just wanted to take a minute to introduce all of the team. So,
and of course, I missed Anita, and I am so sorry, Anita. My bad. I apologize. Thank you so much for your hard work on the budget.
And one more person behind you, Director. Who's,
This is Yvette.
Yes.
Yvette Gonzalez.
yeah,
She's
the
also a
person I
member-
want to recognize is turning around to look for somebody behind her.
Yvette is-
But I know Yvette is in finance, and so I think it would be appropriate to introduce her and what she does for you.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, Yvette, thank you so much. Yvette has been helping out with committee liaison work while Carolyn is out, and just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, Yvette, so much for your help stepping up. And she's here with us today taking minutes for the committee. So thank you so much.
Sorry. Okay, so we'll go ahead and launch into the presentation. So Janelle, do you want to yeah. Go ahead and hit the first slide. Yes. So just a few opening remarks. Santa Feans have experienced a strong recovery that has provided the opportunity to continue efforts to transform the city into a more just and prosperous city. This budget focuses on maintaining core and essential services that were restored over the last fiscal year. At the same time, we are finding ways to innovate in the delivery of those services. Just a side note, federal economic stimulus aid was approved in the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA, for the city of Santa Fe in FY23. And we will continue to use that to support the city's expansion of key social services, businesses and facilities, and parks and trails over the next 2 years. You will not see a lot of ARPA money in this budget per se. You'll be seeing that in first quarter in the form of a carry forward. We don't generally put grants and things like that are carried forward in the original budget because the fiscal year is not closed yet, so we don't know how much will be available to carry forward. So rather than put in a guess and have to adjust that later, we generally put the carry forward in at first quarter. Next slide. So just going over some of the highlights of the overall budget. The recommended FY24 expenditure budget for all funds of 403.4 million reflects a decrease of 22.2 million or 5.2% when compared to FY23 mid-year budgeted levels. Similarly, the recommended FY24 general fund expenditures total 131.8 million, a decrease of 2.5 million or 1.9% from the FY23 budgeted levels at mid-year. And we wanted to put in here that these decreases are attributable to expenses carried forward from the FY22 budget into the current FY23 budget for ongoing department initiatives, as well as many one-time expenses that were approved to be funded in FY23 from FY22 gross receipts tax revenue that was earned in excess of budgeted estimates. And I know you all recall seeing many of those bars in the last couple of years. Therefore, we just want to note that while we're seeing a decrease from the mid-year level, this does not reflect a decrease or a pullback in city department services or spending, but really reflected the one-time nature of the FY23 budget. So we're comparing to a higher base, and therefore it looks like our new budget is lower, but really that's because the base that we're comparing to is so much artificially higher because of these carry forwards, the ARPA money, the one-time GRT money. So just want to put that out there that, you know, you're going to see decreases in several departments, but that does not mean that we are reducing services or, you know, our ongoing programs will continue to be funded as well.
And Andy, could I jump in and just clarify one thing on this slide? I know that there's been some media coverage about a $20 million increase, and I just wanted to address that and clarify. So the original FY23 budget was $383 million total. And then there were increases to arrive at that mid-year budget amount of 425.6 million. And those increases, as Andy mentioned, were due to things like carry forward of grants such as ARPA and CARES Act. Capital money is also carried forward, and then other increases due to BARS. For example, you'll recall that we did several mid-year adjustments through BARS that increased that budget. So the FY24 proposed budget of 403.4 million actually falls in between the original and the mid-year for FY23. when comparing to the mid-year, which is, essentially the final budget for FY23, the proposal for FY24 is, as Andy mentioned, down by $22.2 million on the expenditure side, and that's about 5.2%. Sorry to interrupt, Andy. I just wanted to jump in because I know that original versus mid-year component has been somewhat confusing. So wanted to provide clarification on that.
Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the all funds expenditure budget broken out by category. I won't go into this in too much detail, but one of the things that'll jump out at you, of course, is that, as we've mentioned many times before, salaries and benefits do make up the majority of the budget. In this case, approximately 36% of the all funds budget. The proportion, as we'll see in a moment, is actually bigger for the general fund. But when you look at all funds, it's a slightly smaller proportion, but you can see it still takes up the lion's share of the budget, with contractuals, insurance, and transfers also taking up a pretty large slices. Next slide. In the general fund, you can see this effect is much more pronounced. Salaries and benefits take up well over half of the budget, a total of 63% just for salaries and benefits alone, with, again, significant shares for contractual services and transfers. But this graph, this pie chart, probably more than most, does a very good job at conveying the fact that salaries and benefits are the lion's share of the budget, particularly in the general fund.
And Andy, I just want to emphasize, just repeat what you said. 36% in the all funds budget is attributable to salaries and benefits. And on the general fund side, it goes up to 63%. So the expenditures associated with personnel and associated benefits are really the driving force behind the budget.
Okay, just going into some highlights of the budget. The FY24 recommended budget is a fiscally responsible budget and a balanced budget that focuses on strategic investments in critical areas, including in the affordable housing department's recommended budget. There is a $4.2 million allocation to fund housing assistance services for city residents, thereby continuing the city's commitment to affordable housing. Also in the affordable housing budget, we have $1.5 million for contracted homeless services. In the economic development department, we have $683,000 in funding for LEDA projects, including companies like Marty's Meals, Beckett Bulow, Alder Spirits, Savant X, Meow Wolf, Second Street Brewery, Earth Traveler, and various other industry cluster development projects. As Emily mentioned earlier, we have a significant investment for the new Southside Teen Center, which is budgeted in FY24 at $1,328,303, and also 10 new positions are included in the budget to provide staffing and furnish and equip the new center. The budget also includes $1 million for eviction prevention services. Next slide. This budget will continue our investment of $500,000 for the Clean Energy Fund. The budget also includes $2.26 million for the purchase of police vehicles and associated equipment. That is in addition to amounts we will be carrying forward in first quarter for previously approved bars from GRT to buy police equipment. There will be significant carry forward for those because, as we've noted in the past, for specialized vehicles like police and fire vehicles, there is a very long lead time for purchase because of all the equipment that has to be separately procured and integrated into those vehicles. We have $540,000 for the purchase of 2 ambulances and 3 other vehicles in the fire department. We have $1.1 million for drainage infrastructure repairs and flood and erosion control efforts. There's $445,500 in the Parks and Open Space Division for homeless encampment cleanups. And $100,000 in funding is included in the budget for the Cultural History, Art, Reconciliation and Truth, or CHART project. Next slide. Now switching over to the revenue picture briefly. Santa Fe's largest funding source is tax revenue, which accounts for 43.7% of all revenues. Within that category of taxes, 81%, so the vast majority, comes from gross receipts taxes, with 6% coming from property taxes and 13% from other taxes such as lodger's tax, gasoline tax, things of that nature. Service fees, which are primarily coming from the city's utilities, also account for 34% of total revenue, so the next biggest share. Overall, including all individual sources, the largest single source of revenue to the city, is, as it has historically been, is gross receipts tax, which represents 35.4% of the total city revenue pie. The budgeted FY24 all funds revenue of $403.4 million reflects an increase of $15.1 million or 3.8% when compared to the FY23 mid-year budget. And on the general fund side, the budgeted FY24 revenue of $131.8 million reflects an increase of $7.7 million or 6.2% versus the FY23 mid-year budget. And next slide. Once again, we see the pie charts. You can see this is the all funds pie chart. You can see taxes makes up the vast majority. That's the large blue slice, with the light green fees and services taking up the next largest slice by far. Just, just including those two alone, we're looking at 78% of the revenue budget. So this is a very taxes and fees are definitely the lion's share of the overall revenue picture. Next slide. In the general fund, this effect is even more pronounced. Taxes make up 82% of the total general fund budget for revenues, with a much larger share taken up by fees and services. Also a fair amount for miscellaneous revenues and licenses and permits. But as you can see, taxes are by far and away the largest grouping within there. I believe that's the last slide. So that concludes the overview presentation, and we will now stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to understand the difference between the budget book we got last week and the one that was in our inbox. I don't know when it was placed in there, and what's the difference between the two, like actual detailed specific differences?
Madam Chair and Councillor Villarreal, I can go through those with you. Let me get my copy from over here. We made a couple of changes in the executive summary, and we wanted to make it easy. We thought it would be too confusing to try to switch out pages. So I can let you know exactly which pages were changed. Let's see.
And these are pages from the original book or what's in the new book?
So I just want to clarify, especially for folks on YouTube, the only version of the book that's been published online on the website is the final version. We printed two different versions. We wanted to get it out, and then we noticed that there were a few things that we needed to update in the executive summary. So those changes were made, and then after that, we posted the book on the website. So folks that are looking online will only see one version, and that's because it was corrected before we posted it on the website.
And let me just note the versions that were delivered to you were the final corrected books. So those should be, other than two minor date things where we said FY23 and meant to say FY24 that I corrected in the online version. Those are the only changes from the printed books that you have. So the books that you have in printed form are the final versions.
The second one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you noted that with the color, this tan color is the final one.
The color of the book is slightly different. That's right. The old one has a slightly darker yellow color, and then the newer one is a little bit lighter. So I apologize.
Yeah, and maybe can you just, I guess, characterize the nature of the changes? I mean, some of them were errors. I mean, I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on this. I think we just need to know which one you should be using and know that there is only one version that went out to the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councillor Villarreal. That's correct. There were minor changes made on pages 9 and 10 in the executive summary and pages 14 and 15. And we considered just switching out those pages in your printed copies of the book because, as I said, the printed copies were the only things that were affected. We provided the printed copies at Quality of Life last week, and then we noticed the changes early Thursday morning, and we updated the book. And in order to make it easier for all of us, we thought it would be better to just reprint the book. So those are the changes in the executive summary, pages 9 and 10, minor changes, and then 14 and 15 in the revenue section that starts on the bottom of page 14. Is that enough detail for right now?
Madam Chair, the other piece that I noticed in the original one, and maybe this was corrected, and it was, unless it wasn't in my book, the Community Health and Safety Department didn't have any highlights or goals for fiscal year 24 in our book, or at least my book.
What page are you on?
51 is where.
In the book that first came out or the book that we're using? When you say original, what do you mean?
Well, when I say original, I mean the one that we received initially, or maybe I'm missing a page. I'm not sure.
Madam Chair, Councillor Villarreal, the highlights that were provided for the two large departments, community development and community health and safety, those were provided within the sub-departments of them. So
Okay.
you will see goals and accomplishments for community services, fire and police, but because those are all components, there are not really separate highlights for the community development department as a whole.
They were kind of structured differently, but I did see the department highlights for the divisions, right? But not for the overall. You did it. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Hi.
Yes, sorry. City Manager,
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Blair.
The finance team gave significant latitude to the department directors this year to have an input on how their presentations were put together and how they were organized. That's different from previous years. And so it may be a little different from department to department. Just wanted to flag that.
Okay, other questions from the committee? Councillor Rivera.
Thank you. In the budget book, and I heard it mentioned creating good jobs and rewarding careers for everyone. And there's things like the MRA director, workforce development and job training. Those are all new monies. Those are all, it's not part of the flat budget, right? Those are expenditures above and beyond flat.
Madam Chair, Councillor Rivera, there is, in terms of you're talking about the bullets in the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Those are a mixture. Some of them, like the Southside Teen Center, are all new expenses. Some of them, like the Clean Energy Fund, are continuations. Probably the majority of them are continuations of them because with the economic outlook being what it is and the addition of the teen center and some other pressures on the budget, we didn't have a lot of fiscal room to add a lot of additional spending this year. So the majority of what you see there is continuations of previous budgeted amounts. But there are some amounts in there, like the teen center, that do represent new expenses.
All right. And also the MRA director.
Yes, there is a new MRA director in economic development to deal with the Midtown Development Program. There are the 10 new positions for the teen center, and there is one additional new position in the city manager.
How many people did the current teen center employ?
Current teen center.
Carlos Ortega teens?
Oh, I don't know how much it is center by center. Let me see, in the youth programs, we had some people budgeted in the youth programs, but I don't know exactly. I believe it was 15, but let me look that up in just a quick moment here. Yes, in the summer youth recreation programs, which includes the staff funding the various centers, there are 10 positions. I don't know exactly who is assigned to which center, but if you would like that information, we could have the community health and safety department provide that.
I was just wondering how many. So are the 10 people that we're funding for the new teen center in addition to who is currently there?
That's correct.
So it'll be 10 plus however.
Yes, it'll be 10 for the 10 new positions for the Southside Teen Center and 10 existing positions used in or that are staffing the current centers and the summer youth and other youth recreation programs.
So we'll have 20 people there year round or just during the summer?
Yes, all these positions are year round. There will be some additional seasonal and temporary staff when the summer youth programs kick off and go into full swing. There will be some additional seasonal positions. We don't budget those specifically as positions in this budget as we have done in the last few years. Rather, the department has a lump sum budget for temporaries and seasonals to use at their discretion and fill those positions.
20 people seems high to me, but if you can verify that and just let me know for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. There are 20 positions.
20 people for the new teen center.
No, 10 people for the new teen center, 10 people for the existing centers and existing programs. So
the existing teen center is going away because people from Market Station are moving into that building.
Yes, but I believe and maybe Kira Ochoa can better explain this than I can. So I'll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. I don't have the exact count on this, but Andy does. The 10 are existing year-round employees for the youth program. So that's not just for teens, that's for majority of them serve younger children. So the additional staff at the teen center are primarily going to be those new 10. We'll do an assessment of volume and how many teens we're serving now that will be serving at the teen center and whether we need to reassign 1 or 2 of those 10 to the teen center. But for now, those 10 are intended to serve the teen center primarily as their only job. Does that make sense?
So the current teen center employees will have to move to the new center.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, part of why I'm having a puzzle is we don't currently have programs running out of Carlos Ortega. All of our programs are currently running out of the Genoveva Chavez Center. So we have the teens being served out of Chavez Center right now. And during the summer as well, that's where they get served. And those will transfer to the teen center once we have the teen center up and running.
Okay. And I think my last question, Madam Chair, is the funding regarding the Culture, History, Art, Reconciliation and Truth project. What is that project? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I don't know a lot of the details of the program itself. it does reside in the community engagement department. It is an ongoing program that was started this year. It involves a variety of initiatives to deal with the what you might call la herencia and cultural issues around the city. And I know it integrates a lot of different factors into trying to build up more of a cultural resource for the city. But more details for more details on that, I think we would need to get back to you on that for a more complete explanation of the program.
Madam Chair and councilors, I can follow up with you on the specific proposed uses for that funding.
Right, and then, it does specify CHARS, which leads me to believe that it's coming from the chart document that was presented to us earlier. Or within this fiscal year, so I don't know if that's where this project is coming from, and if it is, I'd like to know what it is. So whatever information you can provide on that would be great.
Certainly, Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera will follow up with you on that.
I get just one more question.
Sure.
If I can. So really in the budget book from pages, I think starting on 10 to 14. Is that all new money? Is that all in addition to the flat budget that all the departments had to work with? Like, for example, 4.7 million for environmental services for landfill tipping fees. Is that brand new or is that existing? Is it in addition to what is currently in the
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, no, that is existing funding. We're just trying to show highlights of the overall budget. This is not necessarily meant to be an indication of all of these are new funding sources. There are some new funding initiatives in there, such as the Teen Center, such as $1.2 million set aside for raises resulting from the class and comp study. But for the most part, most of these bullets are continuation of current services, such as debt service at the MRC or business incubation and small business resources. There are, it's a mix, like on page 10, $150,000 for the economic development strategic plan. I believe that is at least mostly new money. But like the next bullet, the $683,000 for LEDA projects. The projects tend to change from year to year, but it is not, you could not call that all new money. It is money that is included in the budget every year, or at least for the past several years. And the amount may change from year to year based on the number of projects that are being undertaken. But we could not fairly call it all new money.
What about the 703,000 for hiring retention incentives for first responders and fire and police?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that is a modification of something that is in the FY23 budget. For the FY23 budget, it was funded for all employees. Because of other pressures on the budget and the flat budget we were looking at, it was scaled back to first responders for FY20.
Right. So I know we recently lost some people in planning and land use to the county because they offer higher wages than we do. Was that considered? Were other departments considered besides first responders, public safety?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes. In general, we did try to make some adjustments. We adjusted. You may recall we put in recent changes to several classifications of parks employees. Those are carried forward into FY24. One of the more recent changes we made were increases to lifeguards salaries because we were having extreme difficulty recruiting people into those positions. As far as land use and across the city, there weren't necessarily ongoing or comprehensive increases like that. But there are planned to be through the classification and compensation study that Bernadette Salazar and her team are currently working through. And so, and we do have $1.2 million set aside in this budget for raises that we are anticipating will be recommended by that study. So when that study is completed, we are anticipating that there will be several categories of employees, including planning and land use employees, that study will be recommending raises for, and we have set aside money for that.
All right, I was gonna ask about if planning and land use felt we could wait that long in order to do it, but I'll ask that question when we get to planning and land use. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I will want to follow up on that line of questioning as well that Councilor Rivera began, but I did want to go over some things that we see in every department that we always ask, what are these? And so I'd like to review them now. Often it's I believe it's the transfer. Let me just go find transfers to other funds. We frequently get what is this? So can you remind us what that was going to be including?
With pleasure, Councilor, Chairwoman Romero Worth, Councilor Cassett. Transfers to other funds can come in a variety of forms. There are a variety of reasons for them. In some cases, there are one of the most common things we see is that there are certain city entities which technically we call enterprise funds, but really probably should not be called enterprise funds, such as the GCC and the Municipal Recreation Complex, because they are not fully self-supporting as an enterprise fund is intended to be. So those funds are actually subsidized either by the general fund or by the municipal gross receipts tax fund, or they might be, some of these like the MRC are subsidized from a variety of places, because the Fund 365, the 0.5% capital GRT fund, is eligible by ordinance to be spent for capital debt and capital maintenance. That portion of the subsidy that MRC gets, for example, will be provided from that Fund 365, with the remainder coming from the general fund for their ongoing subsidy needs. There are several funds that fall into that category, like the aforementioned GCC. In many years, although not in FY24, airport sometimes requires a subsidy. The Southside Library, because of the setup there, they require a subsidy from the general fund for operations. Of the other two big ones that we see virtually every year are the Midtown campus project, particularly its high debt service needs. And the rail yard development district also generally requires a substantial subsidy to maintain its operation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And there are some other transfers in other categories, mostly for grant matching. For example, in the seniors funds, we tend to overmatch those funds because we do get a fair amount of grant funding for seniors operations, but those do not come close to covering the needs of the city and the overall operations costs. So we actually overmatch. We have a certain percentage that we are required to match those programs, but because the desire of the city since I've been here in 2001 and probably before then has been for a more robust senior citizen services division, the city actually provides more than is technically required under the match to keep those programs going. So there are other grant matching things too. For example, the MPO receives a grant match every year from the aforementioned 0.5% GRT capital fund for transportation planning activities. So there are a variety of reasons for transfers, but those are really the two biggest reasons that you'll see in here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Looking at, kind of the overall budgets, I do have a couple questions. So on revenues, all funds revenues by category, page 17, we have miscellaneous revenue, and then we have this fun category called other miscellaneous revenue. I know it's not that much, but I am curious where that's coming from.
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, that is really kind of a grab bag of everything from refunds, chargebacks for expenditures. There are let me think of what else. Some rental income goes in there. It's really just kind of all the little things that don't fit into other categories that you can't call fees, you can't call taxes, you can't call fines. It's really kind of probably the largest revenue source, I think, in there would be miscellaneous refunds and reimbursements, which can be done for a variety of reasons. In the past, we've seen reimbursements, for example, to the fire department for their wildland firefighting activities. We will see reimbursements for departments providing services to, for example, reimbursements to parking for some special events when an outside entity is holding an event and they want to provide free parking at that event. They will provide parking with reimbursements for the revenue that they would have received under that. It's really, kind of like I say, it's a grab bag. There's a whole lot of stuff in there.
Thank you.
Little stuff.
Thank you. And then overall in the budget, so we have utilities and contractuals, and those are collapsed when we get to the department by department budget. I assume contractuals are when we have contracted with a third party to do some work. Why have we collapsed utilities and contractuals? Because I think it'd be interesting to see, especially in some departments, how much our contracts are, especially when we are utilizing them to subsidize city services because we can't fill positions. Is it easy to uncollapse those and really see what are we paying in utilities and then what are contracts, or am I misunderstanding contractuals?
No, you're correct. Those are collapsed, and that's just basically a general accounting principles. Those are kind of put into the same category. We have codified into our system a means of splitting those out into greater levels of. We try not to do that in the overall budget book, just because there are so many little subcategories in there that it can kind of easily get lost in the weeds. But if you like, we can make a note to provide a breakout of contractuals and utilities by department.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Given our time, I will cut my questions a little bit short on some of these. I did also want to follow up on what Councilor Rivera was discussing, and I know that we can talk about the class and comp in more detail on the day that we have HR. But this might be a larger conversation. We've run into challenges of how we make changes to the budget, and we ran into this last year, and I would like to talk about how that process might move forward this year if there are things that the committee wants to change. And I'm going to guess the chair says we are not going to have time for this conversation.
We are not going to have this conversation right now, but it is a conversation that we have started and we don't have time to do it today.
Okay, I
So
understand that,
we're
but
gonna
to be
have to go on.
continued.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will yield the floor for now. Thank you.
Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here today. I hope your seats are comfortable. It's going to take a little while. I'm just going to go through some items, and I'm not looking for answers to them. They're just things that folks might put an asterisk next to that I'll be bringing up with some of the departments to ask them so that they can give some clarification. So I'm on page 10, and if when people are speaking from the budget book, if everyone could try to let us know what page you're on, it's really helpful. Page 10, near the bottom of the page, addition of 1 FTE. That's in addition to the consultant or consultants that we already have. So that's something I'll be wanting a little information on. On the next page, 11, under preserving, protecting, and advancing our history, art, and culture. I'll be asking for a little information on what creative cities are. Next section, helping those who need the most help. Much like Councilor Rivera, I have a few questions on the 10 new FTE positions, and if folks in recreation could think about that in terms of staffing as compared to other recreation centers, so that we have clarity that that's really how many people we need. A little information on the 1 million for eviction prevention services, and any history of monies that we have currently spent on those kinds of programs. Page 12, the 100,000 in contracted services on the false alarm program, and the 183,000 in the medical pharmacy oversight. And moving on to page 14, top of the page, $550,000 in utility customer service on billing system and the planned upgrade. Somehow I wish that that item wasn't in this budget book. But it is, so let's go ahead and plan to talk about it a little bit. We've talked about it for what, 2 or 3 years, Councilor Villarreal?
It's like 10.
Yeah, it just won't go away. Middle of the page, I also have some questions on the 100,000 chart funding and the 75,000 on the shopping cart removal. And Chair, those are just the things that I want to give a heads up to, so that when the different departments come, they can have some answers for me on those. We don't need to discuss them today, because I expect the departments have more in-depth answers than what I would ask for from these folks sitting in front of us. So thank you very much.
Great. Councilor Cassett, you made a
Madam Chair.
gesture like you wanted to say something, and I'm going to warn us all. I have a couple quick questions, and we do need to get onto the unions because of our quick because of our hard stop. But you're okay, and you're
Yep, I just
flagging me
wanna-
now. Yeah.
Highlight some things too, because I just
Okay.
have one question about the differences in the booklet, but I think I have the same kind of confusion for this budget of what's new monies versus continuation or carryover from fiscal year 23. So when we get into some of those details, it would be helpful to understand in each department, what is an actual carryover or continuation? And then what's actually new monies? Because it was hard to determine that. And, you know, specifically, there's some that Councilor Lindell just highlighted. It would be good to know that 1 million, this is an example, 1 million for eviction prevention services. Did we spend that last one? Because we budgeted that last year and we have no update as to how did it go? Did it get used? In what form? The other one is the Clean Energy Fund. We had questions last year about this, and this moved forward and being funded, and we have gotten 0 updates about how's it going? What's it been used for? Now we're adding an additional, I believe, 500K as to continue that. So it would be good to know, how did it go? What's happening now, and why is it, what's moving forward? And then for the overview, the budget, there was new initiatives that the mayor also talked about in the state of the city. And it was the Hopewell Man, I'm calling it anti-displacement efforts, the Living Wage Task Force. And then anything else we need to know, is that in the budget book? I didn't see it, but it's not under the mayor's office. If it's embedded somewhere else, it would be good to know like what that looks like, or maybe you just mentioned them. I'm not sure. So I think it would just be helpful to understand some of those projects that are carryover, including the down payment assistance. Like, how is that going? I would like staff to know or let us know, because it just got implemented and we're here at the end of fiscal year 23. It would be good to know how's that working out, and who's have we gotten any folks applying, and how's that moving forward? Because then we're adding another 700,000, and it would be good to know where we're at with that. And I think there's a few others, but I can note them when we get to the departments. But I think it's just really trying to understand new monies and then new positions, and how are they different from consulting work. I think what I saw differently in this budget book is we didn't get into the detail of like how much funding is actually going towards consulting needs. We had a lot of details last year on that, and it concerns me. I raised this because I don't want us to privatize the city, and I realize there's we have these gaps in positions, and we have to fill those gaps because there's immediate needs. It would be good to know, like, how are we moving forward and filling the vacancies? And are we filling those vacancies? I see some have been filled, and that was good to see. But if there's still this amount of funding that departments are asking because they're still going to be needing contractual services, and I didn't see that kind of level of detail. So it would be good to understand the difference of like what's being filled by actual staff vacancies, and then what are we covering with contracts.
And Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, if I could ask Janelle to go to slide 4 in the presentation. There you will see this is for the city as a whole. So it's not broken out by department, but there at least you can see the contractual services and utilities are broken out separately. Contractual services represent 10% of the budget, or $40.4 million. Utilities overall represent 4% of the budget, or $14.8 million. In the next slide for general fund, go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Wrong. Yeah, too far. I told you to go too far. There should be slide 5. No, the next slide 5. There we go. Slide 5. You'll see contractual services in the general fund are budgeted at just under 13 million, or 10% of the total expenditure budget. Utilities are just over 3 million, or 2% of the total budget. We will, of course, be glad to provide the department by department breakdown of contractuals and utilities, as Councilor Cassidy asked, and we have made a note of that. But just to give you an overall idea of the picture through the whole budget, that's how those two break out.
Thank you. And I realize everyone's going to need contractual services. That's how we do business. I just want to make sure when we have vacancies that we're trying, like getting an update on those vacancies for the different departments.
Sure.
If I could, I'd like to provide a little clarity on some of the questions you just asked on. We had this program budgeted this year, and we've also budgeted it for next year. One of the things we've done a little different this year, and I'll use the mortgage assistance.
I'm going to ask you to talk more directly into the mic. I'm
sorry.
concerned that people watching may not be able to hear you. We can hear you okay, but.
Okay, is that better? I'm sorry. So I'll use a mortgage assistance program. When you initiate these programs, sometimes it takes some time, get contracts in place and partners and all of these other things. So what we've done is we've established, this is how much we're spending in this fiscal year. We're only going to add that much. So we're going to keep it at that level, but we're not necessarily budgeting another $750,000. Okay, we can get into this in more detail in these departments, but I don't want you to think that it's immediately we're plugging that whole amount back in.
Okay, couple
Madam-
things.
Madam
Yes,
Chair
yes,
and
Director
councilors,
Oster.
one more point I wanted to add regarding the new money versus continuation and carryover by department. I think one of the things that was important to me as we started to build this budget within the constraints of trying to keep things flat overall was to give my peers out in our various departments flexibility to make adjustments within their own budgets. So I'm not sure it's going to be possible to specifically identify all of those different changes because we wanted to allow flexibility at the department level to say, you know, you have this pot of money, how do you want to allocate it out within your department? So I will say that, you know, with regard to the focus on fiscal responsibility and ensuring that we didn't, you know, spend more than we have, we wanted to allow flexibility at the department level to make adjustments. So you will see that. You will see some shifting from, you know, one example that Andy mentioned is the incentive program for the current year, FY23, which was a one-time program for recruitment and retention incentives. Throughout the budget, we've reallocated some of those funds to support other needs in FY24. So I understand the desire to know what's new and what's continuing. And I think the directors will really be able to speak to that in the individual presentations. So that's how I would recommend that we handle that question.
And I would just add, Madam Chair, that overall, as far as big ticket items, the only really 100% new items that I can think of in this budget are the money set as the 1.2 million set aside for the class and comp study results and the teen center. Virtually everything else in here was either initiated in a previous budget and we're carrying it forward, or it was initiated during FY23 and we're continuing it. There is virtually nothing I can think of offhand that is 100% all new and, you know, not just a small like vehicle purchase or something that's not really significant.
Madam Chair and councilors, I would add to that list the proposed salary increases because that does reflect an increase in overall expenditures. However, it's primarily funded by redirecting other monies. For example, those that were used for the one-time recruitment and retention incentives are being redirected to help fund the proposed salary increases.
Okay, we're going to have to move on. I do have two quick questions. Can you go back to slide 4? Nope, slide 3 maybe. There we go, that one. So and I'm going to need either Director Oster or Director Otero to talk about this first bullet point. The recommended FY24 all funds expenditures of 403.4 million reflects a decrease of 22 million or 5.2% when compared to FY23 mid-year budget levels. Now, you mentioned it's at the top of the hour about how, you know, it's not if you compare to the FY23 as introduced, that's a totally different animal in terms of how much the budget has increased or decreased. And can you just comment a little bit about why FY23 mid-year is a better marker and why we look at that rather than FY23 as it was introduced?
I really appreciate that sorry, Counselor. I really liked the way that the city budgeted in this manner because we're using numbers that are far more current. If you're budgeting at the state, you're using amounts that are at least a year old. If we're using the mid-year budget, we're starting our budget process in January from where the budget is at on December 31st. So we know what monies are in what department, and what we're looking at is far more realistic than saying, oh, well, we're going to go back to, you know, a year ago when we built this budget and use those numbers. So it's just a more realistic and accurate methodology than using the prior year budget.
Because mid-year is more accurate based on what actually has happened.
It's what's actually, has actually happened. It's also including, you know, if we've identified we can do a budget adjustment. We had some unanticipated GRT that we think is going to be recurring. We can build that into the budget. Those numbers are all in there as of December 31st. They're not in there if we go back to FY 23 original.
Okay. All right. And we do have to go on, but I want one other thing I want to clear up right now, and I'm going to put the city manager, I think, on the spot. We've heard this idea of a flat budget bantered about a bit. And as I thumb through this in the mayor's letter to us, I don't see any call out of a quote unquote flat budget. And I guess I want to clarify, or does it say that? Oh, front page, there we go. Well, maybe I just want some clarification about why you use that term and when you initially started the budget process with department heads, and you know what you mean by it, and just a little bit of context, I guess, to the use of that term.
Great. Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Frankly, part of it was done about creating internal expectations for our leadership team. Part of the feedback that we received from department and division directors about last year's budget process was that they felt they were being asked to put together budget proposals for any and everything they think they could ever want in the world. And considerable time and energy went into plans and ideas and things that frankly the city didn't have capacity to implement, much less the funding to implement. And so part of what we were talking with our senior leadership team about as the budget process began was about trying to create realistic expectations for what we could do. And to avoid having senior staff come to budget meetings saying, great, we've got this great $50 million idea, you know, and then having to disappoint them by saying that's not likely feasible. Part of it as well comes from the idea, and I don't know that we've done a good enough job in talking about this, is the really significantly large size of last year's budget. The current budget year that we're in right now really was a record size budget for the city based on significant increases in GRT. And so what we've really over the last few weeks tried to talk with the public and senior staff about is the idea that while this budget is relatively flat compared to last year, it still is one of the largest budgets in the city. It's in the city's history. And it's something that we're very proud of. And so the notion of creating the flat budget was a conversation that started internally. I think it did leak out into the public sphere. I think we've tried to avoid utilizing it very much in our public communications about this budget. But the idea behind it was frankly, about an economy of time, trying to ensure that we were being honest and transparent with our own senior staff who are coming to us with budget recommendations, and trying to be realistic about what we anticipate being the amount of revenue coming in the coming year.
Okay, thank you. I think that's good context for everybody to understand as we go forward and think about where there are increases and where there aren't, and kind of the situation we find ourselves in. All right, we're going to thank you all for the overview. We'll be spending a lot of time together. So see you soon. And we're going to turn the floor over to our unions. I don't have and I don't know I don't have a list of the unions that are here. I don't know who the representative speakers are. I don't know how many of you are here. Is somebody coordinated that?
Madam Chair, I see that we have leadership from AFSCME and leadership from our fire union here at the current time. And so I would defer to them as to who would like to go first. We have 3 union leaders from AFSCME here and 1 from fire.
Okay.
And here
Great.
comes fire.
Looks
I think
like
down there
we're
is
going to
great.
do fire first. And I think you can pull up a chair or stand at the podium, whatever you want to do. I think the table's just there for people with laptops or, you know, what papers they want to spread out. If you're more comfortable at the podium, that's totally fine. Well, welcome nonetheless.
Thank you. Is this on, or do I got to mess with anything? Okay. All right.
And if you
Madam-
could just introduce yourself to the public, you have to think about us as being more than just this room, but you're beaming out into Santa Fe and probably out yonder further.
Perfect. Aiden Lopez, Local 2059, the Fire Union President. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I appreciate you allowing me to speak today. My name is Aiden Lopez. I'm the president of the Santa Fe Firefighters Association, and I represent 160 men and women who put others before themselves, who go towards dangerous situations with no regards to the potential physical or mental impacts that can haunt them for years to come. I'm proud to represent these members because they are developing who we are, not only in the city, but throughout the state. This last session, the Local 2059 pursued funding for Fire Station 2, and they were able to acquire almost $4 million. They spoke on many fire-related bills that would not only help us, but smaller fire departments throughout the state. These bills aiming for fire recruitment and retention, where the entire state has seen a decline. Our biggest hurdle, the average firefighter wage in the state of New Mexico is 50% less than the national average. This has recently prompted neighboring departments to increase firefighter wages up to 24% in the past year. These departments seek not only to take new recruits, but established firefighters from our departments as well. This could inhibit growth of our department. And when a city outgrows its fire department, firefighters won't be the only ones getting burned. This budget proposal shows a 3% increase in salaries for our members, slightly lower than the department I spoke of before. Although any increase is good, the delivery was off. This 3% was not slid across the table in a negotiations meeting. It was announced directly to employees, along with clear expectations of not respectfully coming to the table. The table that aids unions all over the country seeking better wages and benefits. Speaking of benefits, insurance premiums will not increase for firefighters this year. Not because the city decided to prioritize the fire department, because the fire department stood up, as it always does, and took the price increase last year, ensuring no future benefit changes. We as a fire department understand if our salaries cannot be competitive, our benefits better be. I want you to continue to know the largest recruitment and retention tool for the Santa Fe Fire Department is our benefits package. Remember, there's no fire department in the state that mirrors our priorities, such as advanced life support ambulances, aircraft rescue firefighting, heavy rescue, fire prevention, hazmat, and wildland teams. No department comes close to the disciplines we deem to be necessities, especially with our increase in call volume, with little to no growth in field staff. Our two biggest priorities this year will be, first, Fire Station 2. The city needs to expedite this project as soon as state funds are available. This will not only help overworked firefighters by putting more professionals on the street, it'll give the working class families assurance that fire and EMS will be there sooner when they need them. Second, recruitment and retention. We need to be competitive with our salaries and benefits, or we soon will be in the same situation as PD, fighting with other departments to keep our members. A firefighting career is not an easy one. We work an average of 832 more hours than the typical city employee per year. This is not including holdovers, special events, or mandatory trainings. We are consistently in a state of readiness and always expect the worst to happen. We are twice as likely to get cancer due to the multiple factors in our working environment, and 30% of us leave the job with some sort of PTSD. I would imagine only 30% of us firefighters even talk to mental health providers, and that's why that number is where it is. In conclusion, there are challenges that face the city every day. The firefighters know every challenge has its opportunity. We as a city have the opportunity to give our community what it needs and the employees what they deserve. I hope that you as a finance committee can amend this budget and have the city come back with a more appropriate increase for unions to better their contracts so we can increase recruitment and maintain retention for its employees. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Madam Chair, are we allowed to ask questions of the union? Just basic?
I guess we have time. Have we done that before?
We have in the past, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we can spend a few minutes if you have questions.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Mr. Lopez comes back to the podium.
So I still receive emails from departments across the state, and I recently saw I think an announcement for Los Alamos, which has a significantly higher, I think, pay rate than probably most departments throughout the state. But are they looking to hire laterals? I know this continues to be an important piece for our police department, to bring people that are already trained over to the police department, so they don't spend as much time in the academy before they hit the streets. And I assume the same is happening with probably Los Alamos and other departments. Do you know much about that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I don't know offhand. I do know that they are seeking, I've heard obviously rumors that they are seeking to do laterals. I don't know if that is accurate and that they are actually doing that. But with the numbers that they're providing, if anyone's able to, willing and able to do a full academy, I don't believe that that's necessarily stopping them, or that's not their concern, is to wait for a lateral. I think, unfortunately, we might have some people go there with no regards to a lateral academy, just full on academy.
Because of the pay.
Because of the pay increases, yes.
And then like with Los Alamos or AFR, I think a lot of our employees live probably south of Santa Fe, and it would be probably an interesting prospect for them to work closer to home. Have you heard of people that are considering maybe looking at other places?
Absolutely. 60% of our department lives in the Albuquerque area. So why not, honestly, would they consider working in their backyard?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Finance Committee, council members, city staff, and all members of the public who happening to be listening. My name is Louis DeMella. I'm the Vice President for AFSCME Local 3999 here in the city of Santa Fe. I'm here with our President Gilbert Baca and Therese Martinez. We're speaking to you representing AFSCME and our membership. Today, we're addressing your invitations set before you the budgetary and financial needs of our membership. First, we'd like to acknowledge with gratitude the announcement made of the anticipated 3% salary increase for all AFSCME union employees. The increase is noted and appreciated. The city also set aside $1.2 million for class and compensation wage increases. City hasn't selected a company to outsource the work for compensation selection of the class and comp study, but they have found the amount they're willing to spend on the results. That money evenly distributed across our members is a roughly 3% increase in wages. Last class and comp study was over 3 years ago. In just those 3 years, the inflation rate in the US has been over 14%, with another 6% increase so far this year. The amount set aside for compensation guarantees our city workers will have less spending power for the privilege of giving our skills and time to the city different. Also, in the statement received from the city of Santa Fe regarding the budget preparation, and I quote, "The finance department reached out to department heads and directors and got meaningful input and participation." It would be great that a future statement read, "The finance department reached out to department heads and directors and city unions and got meaningful input and participation." Again, this year, it appears all budgetary decisions have been made and the unions are an afterthought. The employees are the inner workings which make the city operate, are given a chance to speak after the budget has been decided, not before. Every year we ask for the opportunity to take part in the budget formulation process, and every year we are instead handed what the city feels we need, we deserve. This was termed, quote, "looking at city services through the eyes of justice." Justice equates with fairness, does it not? We appreciate the 1% salary increase barometer for those making over $100,000 per year. However, their 1% does not have to be divided into a percentage for the various financial elements of a union contract like our 3% does, or the alternative given as a flat salary increase when inflation is currently 6%. Those making over $100,000 does not involve a memorandum of understanding, legal fees for review of a memorandum of understanding, and ratification and voting of a memorandum of understanding. It becomes an exercise in how far we as a union can stretch the 3% this year, or throw our hands up in frustration and give it straight into the deserving employees' pocketbooks. And our benefits get no attention again this year, such as an increase in a bilingual incentive pay, longevity leave, training and tuition assistance, personal protective equipment, promotions, employees, sick leave, annual leave, injury and mentor leave. Is that justice, fairness? And there is overtime, compensatory time, classification and pay, shift differential, medical and dental coverage, parking, snow and ice removal, and other incentives such as emergency and traffic hazard incentive pays. All of these will go unaddressed in the proposed budget. I ask again, is this justice? Is this fairness?
This year, the other two unions got retention bonuses for new hires. The AFSCME union had no mention of retention bonuses in this budget cycle, yet the majority of departments and divisions are understaffed. Is this justice? Is this fairness? So in place of a check asking workers to stay, make a 4-day work week available for more of your AFSCME members. 4-hour days per week will free up time for our members to live their lives outside of work. We ask, why is AFSCME Local 3999 not treated equally? AFSCME Local 3999 has the largest membership of all three unions. Therefore, the budgetary decisions made affect the major part of the employee workforce. Should not all unions be treated equally? With inflation rates, cost of living increases, and insurance costs increasing for all city employees, not to mention the increased costs for gasoline for commuting and groceries to put food on the table, rise in property taxes, the rise in homeowners insurance and mortgage and rent payments, all on the rise. This budget prepares for a recession that might happen while ignoring the crisis of inadequate staffing for the city services the public demands. This committee is tasked with the financial responsibilities of the entire city of Santa Fe, not just department heads and directors, all the city. Otherwise, it will remain what it is now, a stalemate, no movement, no progress, no improvement for the city of Santa Fe's contractual obligations with this union. As you can see, all of these facets need to be addressed going forward, not just to attract talent to the city of Santa Fe ranks, but to make progress, to have real justice, real fairness. AFSCME proposes and requests again this year that a line item be added to the future budget in perpetuity for contract negotiations that will reflect justice, fairness, with equitable cost of living and inflation rates factored in that can be distributed financially. Affecting articles of the AFSCME union contract. We feel this is particularly important and a necessary addition for the recommended budget. Since the city of Santa Fe can add $10.5 million to the city's financial reserves this budgetary cycle, then can't funding be earmarked and allocated to provide justice and therefore fairness to the AFSCME Local 3999 union workforce, who are the very heart of the city of Santa Fe? Please see to it this year, Madam Chair, Finance Committee, Council members, that this is the last year that AFSCME Local 3999 is not included in budgetary preparations. Include us in your preparations. Give us that justice, that fairness that this budget statement claims it contains. Thank you for your rapt attention to our financial and budgetary concerns. Respectfully, we are AFSCME Local 3999. Thank you.
Thank you. And did we have one other speaker? Okay. Okay. I thought I had three. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilwoman.
can the union representatives email us what you just spoke of so we can, because I know it was fast and I didn't get all my notes down, so I was hoping that you all could email us. Great, thank you.
Madam Chair and councilors, the city does have a third union, the police union, and we don't have a representative here today. But if they would like to present, we can make time later in the hearing process.
Okay, we'll look at that. All right, if we don't have any other union representatives with us, we are ready to adjourn, and we will start again tomorrow at, hold on. Tomorrow we start at noon, and we will be looking at the community development budget. And I think, let's see, tomorrow, we do have a hard stop tomorrow, I believe at 4, because we need a break between the budget hearing and the council meeting that starts at 5. So coming attractions. Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.